For most Black Americans, especially those in the South, the front porch isn't just part of the entry into the house. It is the place we enter community. It's not just the comfort or safety we experience there, but it's where we do some people watching and good reflection. On the front porch is where we tell the truth with a little sweetener and an awesome time along the way. We take what we learn and we act. On this episode, we discuss all things related to youth, education, community, and the politics of people.
Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of On the Front Porch with KaCey. All right, we're going to jump right into it, y'all. So today we are going to talk about being humble or dumbing yourself down. Sometimes it's a very fine line. And I have learned that fine line as I have gotten older. You know, being someone who is a self-admitted people pleaser, right? I want to shout out Sabrina Cherry. She went to Morris Brown with me. I think she was a year or two ahead of me. And there was this very small group that I was in with her, and we were holding each other accountable in just various areas of our lives, right? Just really around self-care and growth. And one of the books that she gave me was around people-pleasing syndrome. And then I gotta give a shout out to Nye Fisher, who I went to church with years and years ago. She gave me my first copy of the book Boundaries. And so for me, that was work that had to be done in a process because a lot of my people pleasing is attached to my anxiety and my diagnosis of depression. And so, you know, I have been very vocal and honest about having a lived experience, about having a mental health diagnosis from the age of 16. And the habits that I created, even as a young girl and as a teenager, trying to figure out, why do I feel the way that I do? Why do I respond to people the way that I do? You know, all these different things, all these different pieces. And the reality of it is that I learned in a lot of therapy and a lot of doing the work that I was compensating for low self-esteem. I was compensating for low self-worth because I didn't have the tools chemically in my brain to feel that way about myself. And so what I would do is do too much as it relates to how I showed up for people, what I did for them, how much I allowed them to take from me. You know, really making myself and extending myself more than was reasonably required in order to have a friend, in order to have someone love me back. And in that, I developed this piece of all these things that I thought it meant to be a good person, right? Give people whatever it is that they ask for. Feel bad when you can't give them what they've asked for, even if what they ask for is, you know, asinine. You know, offer to always help. When someone says thank you, like no thanks needed, you know, when someone wanted to celebrate something that I did well, I didn't know how to take the compliment. I didn't know how to take the accolades. And then as a believer, you know, I was taught, you know, all glory belongs to God, right? That we take no credit for anything. And I'm telling y'all, that's not true. That's not true. There's some things that God wants us to take credit for. There's some things that God empowers us to do, right? There's some situations in our lives that God is not even going to get involved in until we have exhausted all of our human, natural power, resources, you know, digging deep. And then he steps in. Like when our physical, natural power is fully exhausted, then his supernatural hits, right? But it usually does not work until we have done everything that he has equipped and empowered us to do. I love that I've learned over the years from various spiritual leaders that, you don't have to pray about everything. Sometimes God is already giving you what you need. What are you praying for? And if you're praying for gratitude and saying, thanks God for giving me what I need to fix this situation, that's something different than praying for God to fix something that he's already empowered you and giving you the tools and the resources to do. And then last night, I was reminded of a meme by my homegirl Heather, who said that sometimes you're not depressed, you're broke. Right? Have we ever felt like that? I know for me, when my money is funny, and I try not to have that happen often, but when my money is funny, I am feeling off. I'm feeling like, oh Lord, the whole world is crashing in on me. Like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to get through this? But as soon as that check hits, as soon as that deposit hits, as soon as that windfall comes, I'm like, okay, I feel like I can take on the world, right? I feel like I can do this. Now, that's not, of course, to make light of the fact that there are people who absolutely have chemical imbalances, who have, clinical diagnosis of some sort of mental health disorder, disease, mental illness, depending on what word feels good in your soul. And so for me, I know very well that I have a diagnosis. And so again, through lots of therapy, I learned that a lot of my people pleasing came from looking for love, right? Looking for people to validate me. And in that, I created this persona of, who's the most lovable person. And I really think too, that has gotten in my way of all the other things that I want in life, right? In terms of how far I want to be in my career, being married by now and having children and, the relationship that's going to end in marriage and all of that. And here I am coming up on a birthday very soon. And some of these things, both professionally and personally, have not come to fruition. And I have to take some onus of that, right? I have to take some accountability for that, because I don't know if people really have gotten the full or the real version of me. Now I'm not the total opposite of what people think of me. I am sweet, I'm kind. I am probably going to always do the most when it comes to the people in my life and people that I love. I'm loyal. I am loyal to a fault. There are some things and some people that I should have walked away from a long time ago. But I also feel like I want my investment to return some dividends, right? Like, I'm staying put. We're going to see this thing all the way through until I realize that sometimes you got to take a L. Like, sometimes you're just not going to win that thing. But I'm loyal. I am community driven. I'm family oriented. I'm the silly girl when I'm really, really comfortable around you. But I realize that there are parts of me that I have buried, that I haven't fully really allowed to evolve, because I don't know if people are going to still accept me and love me and want me and need me if I then show that part of myself to them, because that part of me is not a people pleaser. That part of me, while I'll always remain empathic, there are times where I'm like, oh, you did that, you fix it. Like, I don't want anybody to hurt. I don't want anybody to feel bad. I don't want any ill to come to people. But sometimes I'm really like, I got to force myself to act like I care, because I'm just like, dude, I'm over this. But if I really give you the full version of how I'm feeling right now, I don't know if you're still going to value all the other things that I've done for you, given to you, invested in you. And, even as I'm speaking, like, that's not my problem. It's one of those situations where we hear all the time that I'm only responsible for how I deliver the information. I'm not responsible for how you receive it. And I carry that with me all the time because I do believe that sometimes people are very callous and careless in how they share things because, it's the truth. Well, yeah, it is the truth, but it doesn't have to be delivered in a nasty way. And I've always tried to make sure that whatever it is that I do, even if it's going to be uncomfortable, is not delivered in a nasty way. Just because it's the truth. Like, just because it's the truth, just because you're right, does not then give you the leeway, or the runway or the full pat on the back to just be disrespectful, rude, nasty, callous, and mean, right? Like, people who do that, like, I'm always looking at them real side-eyed, like, who didn't love you? Why don't you love yourself? Like, I'm being honest. Those are the questions I think in my head when I come across rude, mean, nasty people. Like, who didn't love you? Why don't you love yourself? Because what is the point of being nasty and rude and mean and callous and careless with someone else's feelings when you don't have to be, right? When you don't have to be. And so all of that, everything we do and how we do it is a direct result of really how we feel about ourselves. It all starts from there. If you love yourself, you treat other people with love. If you respect yourself, you treat other people with respect. If you hold yourself in high esteem, you hold others in high esteem. If you give yourself grace, you give other people grace, right? So a lot of this is centered around really, how do you feel about yourself? And then how does that translate into how you treat other people? And how do they feel about themselves when they are around you? So I say all that again, just to kind of set the tone of why I developed this habit of dumbing myself down at times. And then also what I have, and I don't know if it's a new term or what have you. So if somebody deserves credit for it, let me know who it is. I'll give it to them. But this idea around the sin of humility. I remember telling some friends of mine in the work a couple of weeks ago, I was like, yo, it's a sin to be too humble. Right? And I was around an older person and she looked at me a little strange. And I said, yeah, it's a sin to be too humble. Like, it's almost like a slap in the face to God to tell him that he has created this amazing, charismatic, creative, thoughtful, intelligent, wonderful person. And then someone says, you are amazing, thoughtful, intelligent, kind, creative. And he's like, oh no, I'm not. Like, what is that? Right? Why do we do that? Now, again, I explained a little bit about why I do that. But I'm not saying that that's the reason other people do it. Sometimes other people do it because as believers, right, for those of us who believe and who profess Christ as our Savior and are Christians or ascribe to those types of spiritual beliefs, have been taught that all glory belongs to God. Right? That when someone tells you that you've done a phenomenal job, especially when we're in church, it is, it's all God. It's not. It's not. And I know people, these deep folks gonna be coming for me. But we're also taught that God empowers us to do great things, right? That we are made in the image and the likeness of God. And so if that's the case, then there are some things that we will do that God has empowered us to do. Why can't we take credit for that? John 14:12, and y'all know I use these things just to give context because this is not a religious type of podcast, but it is who I am, right? And so as we talk about this faith piece real quick, John 14:12 tells us that, verily do I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I've been doing, and they would do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. So when he left us with the power to do everything that he did, right? Walk on water, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, house the unsheltered, right? Heal the sick, give sight to the blind, hearing to the deaf. Like everything he did when he walked this earth, he said, I expect you to do these things and greater. So if that's the case, then if I do something amazing, why can't I say thank you? That's not pulling away from God and his supernatural power and what he has done, because sometimes his supernatural gotta hit our natural, right? There are times where, we have exhausted all of our natural influence and resources and skills and tips and tricks and trades and all that stuff. And God, this you. There are times where I literally say, I don't want this no more. I have done all I can do. There's nothing else that I know how to do. Take it. It's yours. You can have it back. Do what you do. And then I'll come back and pick it back up when you're ready for me to handle it, manage it, facilitate it, take charge of it, right? And so even in church, for those of us who grew up in church, and whether some of us no longer practice Christianity or never grew up in it at all, we've always been taught to say thank you, right? Or to not be boastful, to not be too proud, right? Nobody wants to be around an arrogant person. And so taking all of that, again, coupled with my people-pleasing syndrome because of the things that I was dealing with as a teenager, already going through hormonal changes and physiological changes and trying to figure out who I am and what kind of person I want to be. And now I have this chemical imbalance that is making it more challenging and more difficult for me. And so the easiest thing I knew to do was to just default to being super nice. Because one, I didn't want one more thing for someone to talk about related to me. I didn't want one more thing for someone to tease me about. I didn't want one more thing for folks to hold over my head. So if I was going to be a little weird already, right, then at least you can say I was the nice weird girl, that I was the KaCey will do anything for you weird girl, like KaCey will give you the shirt off her back type of weird girl, right? And so knowing that it did develop a habit. Like anything that you do, good or bad, indifferent, becomes a habit if you do it over and over again. And then it becomes a part of your personality, right? It gets embedded in your psyche. And then you have to identify the thing. You have to name it so that you can break it, so that you can create a new habit. And so the last couple of years, I've been in this personal journey of creating a new habit of getting out of people pleasing. And it's hard because now it's counter to who I have told myself that I want to be. And in that, I realized that I was also engaging in this sin of humility, and I was basically dumbing myself down. That people would tell me, oh my gosh, you are so amazing in this area. And I'd be like, not really. Or I would have people tell me, why are you not getting paid for that? I'm like, well, who's going to pay me for that? Why would somebody pay me for that? It's so easy for me to do this. Well, it's easy for me to do this because y'all, I've done this for years. Like I literally have built an expertise in a few areas. So yeah, when you pay me, you're not paying me for the amount of time it's taking me to execute in this moment for you. You're paying me for all of the years of failure and trials and tribulations and challenges and hurdles that I overcame to perfect whatever it is that you're asking me to help you with. You're paying for my knowledge, right? Not necessarily the skill. And I'm learning to be okay with that. I'm learning that I don't have to constantly do the most and overperform in order for someone to find validity and credibility in what it is that I have to offer. And so some people call that imposter syndrome, right? And for me, it's not necessarily imposter syndrome. It was more so I don't want to make it easy for them not to like me. And I don't know why I'm telling y'all all my business today, but this is what y'all gonna get. And hopefully it's gonna help somebody, right? Because see, the other extreme of this is not wanting to please people at all. That's how you alienate yourself. That's how nobody wants you. Nobody want to deal with you. Nobody wants to give you grace. Nobody wants to work things out and through with you because you just don't care about nobody and nothing, right? That's the extreme of it. And I don't profess to ever come to a place, and I pray to God I never do, where I don't need people, where I don't want people, where I don't want folks to have an opinion of me. Now, whether or not that opinion should take precedent over my personal opinion of myself or those that I hold in high esteem, my close immediate family, right? Whenever God blesses me with a life mate, God himself, right? Like your opinion is not going to be higher than these folks. And above all those things, it's not going to be higher than the opinion that I have of myself. But I do want to make sure that I am walking through this world, not leaving a purposeful bad taste in people's mouth. Because look, everybody ain't going to like you. Like there's 3 people I can call right now and I won't. Because they not even friends of mine. Like these people ain't never even had a real conversation with me. Well, one has, and I had to put her off my porch. But there's these 3 people I'm thinking of that don't know me, but don't like me. Right. And I've learned that you don't like me because I'm doing something that you know you could never. And that is okay. Right. So I'm learning, I'm using that as, fodder to continue working through this. Let me just keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing and just let folks not like me if they choose not to. Like, I'll tell you this. I know I got family members who don't like me. And that's not to say that people gotta be buddy because you share DNA and you related and all of that. And when I say don't like me, what I mean is like, if they didn't have to talk to me, they wouldn't worry about it, right? Like, ain't no beef, ain't none of that. So let me just clear that up because people love to take one little thing and run with it. But when I say don't like me, meaning that I don't know if we would be friends in real life if we did not share DNA, if we did not share this familial bond. And that is okay, right? Because like and love are 2 different things. Like the one thing I know about my family is that if somebody legitimately comes to do harm for them, like we ride at dawn. Like that's just what it is. Like we gonna do what we gotta do, no questions asked, right? Now, I mean, we again may not kick it and shoot the breeze and do all those things afterwards, but you're not gonna touch what has come from my grandmama. And you're just not going to do it, right? And that's just how I feel. I can't profess that everybody feels the same way about their family members, across the board. But I know for me and mine, I don't have to think that we would be friends in real life for me to make sure that people know that they can't disrespect you. Not in my presence, not in my face. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just not going to do it. Like, because you come from my grandmama. Like, what? No. And so it's okay for people not to like you, right? Even people that you expect to like you, even for people that you want to like you, right? It's okay for them not to. But what is not okay is for you to be so far in this spectrum that you don't care about nothing nobody has to say, that now you live your life in a way where nobody wants to deal with you. Nobody trusts you. Nobody wants to spend time with you. Nobody wants to be around you, right? Because you're just not a nice person to be around. Your energy is off, right? And so we got to find this balance. We got to find where between being careful of how we show up in the world and then not being so careful that we just don't care how we show up in the world in terms of how we engage with people. So this idea of the sin of humility is this idea of I have now really not given credit to myself or to my creator or to whatever it is that I ascribe to that's bigger than I am because, I don't want to be boastful. I don't want to be arrogant. I don't want to, seem as though I think I'm better than, and again, y'all, these are like contrived thoughts. I'm just letting you all into my world, right? Just letting you into my brain just a little bit, right? Because everybody does not think like this. There's some people who enjoy being arrogant because it feeds their ego. We talked about ego in a previous podcast. It feeds their ego. It feeds their pride, right? Pride comes before the fall. That ain't just biblical. That is just a natural part of life. What goes up got to come down unless you break another law, right? The law of gravity says if it goes up, it's going to come down. And the only way to break a law is with another law. And so if you're going to be puffed up, at some point, you're going to get puffed up so much that you're not going to, your container of whatever that is, your spirit, your soul, your body, your reputation, whatever that container is not going to be able to hold, right? All this air that you blowing into it, and it's going to eventually pop. It is going to dissipate. It is going to break. Your soul is going to get broken. Okay. Right. So I hear Beyonce, you won't break my soul, but you keep on, your soul going to get broke because the container, whatever that thing is that you're feeding, is only going to be able to take so much. And then you're going to get embarrassed, most times publicly, and embarrassed at the most inopportune times because you didn't know the difference between confidence and arrogance. You didn't know the difference between being humble and the sin of humility, right? Just a basic definition of humble, right? So hopefully we know what this is, but maybe we don't. And so literally, if you were to Google the definition of humble, the dictionary says that it is having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. You may hear someone say that they came from humble beginnings of low socioeconomic status. And she had to work her way up, right? Also being humble is, having to swallow your pride. One of the examples given in the dictionary is, I knew he had to humble himself to ask for my help. Meaning he didn't want to. You were the last person he wanted to come and ask, but he been walking around here like, oh, I got this, right? I'm right. You wrong. My way better. She around here like, oh, I'm never going to need you again. I'm never going to have to cross this bridge again. And then here you are, the only person that can solve this problem for them in their immediate vicinity. They got to humble themselves to come back and see you. That's very different than what I mean about the sin of humility and dumbing yourself down, right? The sin of humility, again, is this idea of consistently letting yourself not receive the proper accolades. If someone says you killed it on that presentation, be like, thank you. I did, didn't I? Right? If someone says, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? I could not have pulled this off without you. It's okay to say, you know what? I appreciate the thanks. It is okay. Like even me using these things as an example is giving me like low key anxiety, right? Just a little bit because I'm like, oh, it feels weird to say, yeah, I acknowledge that no, you probably could not have done this without me in this moment. Not to say that it could not have gotten done, right? That's where you become arrogant, when you think that people can't get stuff done unless you're the one who did it. And I used to operate in that too, because I used to think that being arrogant used to mean that you walked around with this visceral sense of cockiness, like, oh, look at me. But I used to think there's some arrogance in when people come and they ask you stuff and you feel like I gotta say yes, because if I don't, it's not gonna happen for them. That is not true. They came and asked you because they knew you was gonna say yes, not because you were the only person to say yes to them. Right? And so we gotta remove these values and these emotions from words and just realize what they are. Because I don't think anybody in my immediate circle would use the words arrogant to describe me. I don't think people in my immediate circle would use the word manipulative to describe me. But in some sense, me being a people pleaser and trying to do all the things, right, is manipulative in the sense that as soon as you don't do what I want you to do for me, it then becomes, but look at all the things I did for you. Look at all the ways I bent over backwards for you. Look at all the ways that I gave you access to me. Look at all the ways that I really made something happen out of nothing because, I essentially wanted to hold something over your head. I wanted something from you. I wanted you to love me. I wanted you to need me. I wanted you to want me. But I also wanted to make sure that I was putting something in the bank so that when I needed you, you would then do the same for me. And let me let y'all in on a little secret. People do not operate like that. Most people do not operate in the way that I have just described myself. I promise you they don't. I am around a lot of people. A lot of people. I do a lot of things, okay? And most people do not operate the way that I do. Most people will take whatever it is that you offer to them, and very few of them are going to think, when I take this, would I be willing to do the same thing that KaCey just did for me? We don't stop and have that thought process when we accept things. We just know that we need it. We know that we want it. We know that it's convenient. So you offering it, I'm taking it. Never stopping to wonder, but would I do the same thing for her? That is okay. I have learned as I am entering into my 42nd revolution around the sun, that it is okay for people to not stop and wonder, would they do the same for me? Here's my work. When I realize that they won't, don't give it to them again. When I realize that they won't, when I realize that they won't even consider, would they do the same for me? I have to then make a decision. Do I do this for them again? Give them the access, give them the resource, give them the time. Right? Give them the grace. Make the decision that when they come back around, do I do the same thing for them? And it's okay if the answer becomes no. It is okay if the answer becomes no. And sometimes you just do things because you want to do them. Right? I think that's one of the things that I do love about myself. That a lot of what I do is because I genuinely want to see the people in my life happy. I get great joy when I see other people celebrated. Do I want my name called at times? Yeah. Do I want recognition and awards? Yeah. But what I want more is to get the work done. What I want more is for the people around me to be celebrated. Like this past week, one of the many things that I do is I'm a part of this organization that is a nonprofit, and we work with a lot of tech founders, and we had a summit. And I have been a little disconnected because I do all the things, and so there's been some conflict of time. But I had a chance to show up, and I had a chance to show up in a strong way. And I realized that I also showed up in a way that made sense for who I am and what I do. And so I wasn't out front, right? I wasn't tapped to lead a panel. I wasn't tapped to be on stage to speak, right? I was in the back with the AV team, with the script, and knowing when the next part of the script was going to happen and what song needed to be played and what slide needed to go up and when we needed to fade the music. And I enjoyed being in the background. And what I found myself doing was every time one of my colleagues was doing something, I had the biggest smile on my face because they were in their element, right? Because they were doing something that they were enjoying in the moment and they were getting the recognition that they deserved. And it gave me joy. And so, no, I don't do things always for the sake of hoping someone would do that for me. I really do it because I want those that I love and I care about to be good, to have what they need, to ensure that they know somebody on the home team is rooting for them and rooting for them sincerely and holistically, right? And that, for me, is the difference between people pleasing and just wanting to see people pleased. Right? But I had to make that shift when I realized that I was operating in sin, not just in the spiritual sense, but just in the natural sense of relationships. And one, taking from people the courage it took for them to say thank you in the first place. You know, you ain't got to walk around and be like, oh, I know you couldn't have done this without me. When somebody says thank you, that's being mean, rude, nasty, arrogant, cocky, right? Don't nobody want that. But the next time somebody says, I couldn't have done this without you, maybe try. I'm just grateful, right, that I was able to help you with this. You acknowledge, yes, you did something there. You acknowledge it. And you acknowledge that they were able to say thank you. So, you know, the next time someone says thank you, they appreciate you, that you do a phenomenal job, that we couldn't have done this without you, that you are a valuable part of what it is that we're building. Don't say, oh, it's okay. You know what? It is not even a big thing. It is a big thing, right? And while it may be okay, it's still huge. And that you were able to use wisdom, skill, experience, time, grace, fortitude, creativity, intelligence to give folks exactly what it is that they needed and they wanted in that moment. And so as I shared a little bit of my story with y'all today around people pleasing and the sin of humility and dumbing yourself down, like really as I journey to 42 in a couple of days, I don't want to miss not one more good thing in my life because I am walking around more concerned about what people think, what people want, because I believe that's the only way that I'm going to be loved. It's not, you know? And sometimes you're going to love people who are not going to love you back. And that's okay too, right? That is all right. It is once you realize that they're not going to return the love, do you allow that to play a part in your self-worth? Or do you say, I had this opportunity to love an amazing human being and now I'm going to take my L and I'm going to move on. And now I have something else in my coffer in order to love someone else. Love is tricky. Love is not always a positive word for other people. Sometimes people don't know what to do with being loved. You know, I've learned that the hard way over these last 40 plus years. Everybody doesn't know, they don't know how to receive love. They don't. And when you say that you love them for whatever reason, it carries this weight for them that they don't know if they want the responsibility of being loved. Because it usually means that they now have to give something back if they choose to receive it. So just know that whatever it is that you are offering, if it comes from a place of sincerity and comes from a place of fully knowing who you are, it's something good. And anyone who takes part in that is being blessed by you, being blessed by the Creator through you. And it's okay to receive your accolades. It's okay to receive your recognition when they say thank you, when they offer some appreciation. So don't find yourself engaging in the sin of humility, right? Don't brush off the good things that you were able to bring to the table for the sake of not wanting to seem boastful, prideful, arrogant, cocky, right? If you're a good person, you're going to be a good person even in your gratitude. If you're a nasty person, you're going to be a nasty person, right? The trick is knowing who you are and how you show up and then working from there. So the sin of humility and dumbing yourself down serves no one, least of all yourself, right? Serves nobody. Not you, not them, not the world, not this community that we're trying to change and we've embarked upon this journey on together. It serves absolutely no one to engage in the sin of humility. There's some things that you absolutely should take credit for and some things that you should go and get paid for because you didn't earn that right to say, I would love to help you, but here's my fee, right? I would love to help you. Here's my rate sheet. And you still give where you want to. You still provide some discount if you choose to, depending on the situation and who it be. But it is okay to say, no, I've earned this right. And it doesn't make me cocky or arrogant or boastful or prideful to say, you know what? I could absolutely help you with that, but it's going to cost you, right? It's going to cost you some ducats. It's going to cost you a few coins, a few dollars, right? Because I've worked for this. I've had to pay for it. Maybe not the same way that this currency is going to be exchanged, but I've paid for this. And so who am I? What kind of esteem do I hold myself in to continue to just give it away for free? That's professional. That's personal. That's interpersonal, right? That's in your relationships, not just romantic, but platonic and family and all of that. Like, it is okay for you to identify what is my exchange going to be? And sometimes it's just the joy of knowing that you were able to. And then sometimes you got to choose that the exchange happens between persons that are going to be able to then give you something back. And sometimes what you get back is not going to be money. Sometimes what you get back is not going to be the same way that you love them, right? But it's going to be something that you need, something that you're going to be able to put into your fuel tank, something that you're going to be able to put into your cup, so that you can continue to do the work that you have been called and purposed to do. And so that you can continue to do this work in a way where you honor God in the highest by understanding that He created somebody and something mighty amazing. We'll see you next time on The Front Porch. Don't forget, share this podcast with your friends, your neighbors, your frenemies, whoever. And, again, let me know what topics you want to hear. And I can't wait to talk to you next time.